Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hi, friends. How are you doing? I'm coming back with a very fascinating conversation, which I think is really, really long overdue. And it's going to be all about astrology. And I have a suspicion that many of you will enjoy this conversation. In my personal life, and also in my practice, I will often refer to astrology, especially when it comes to helping people to identify the best suiting career. Having said that, I am not a professional astrologer, nor do I aspire to become one. So usually what I can offer is only high-level analysis and direction, which still, by the way, can provide some mind-blowing insights. The way I view it, and that's just my personal view, is that the work that I do is helping people clarify, identify, crystallize their authentic, unique career blueprint. And once they have that career blueprint, they can then design career around it, which usually tends to lead to not only fulfillment, but financial rewards, because the soul wants us in alignment and the universe will reward us when we are walking the path of alignment. And astrology, again, the way I perceive it, is a soul's blueprint. So what our soul intended to learn and experience and go through in this lifetime, what lessons it wants to integrate, what gifts and abilities is already bringing in, perhaps that are karmic, that are coming from previous lifetimes. So honestly, every time I get an astrology reading, I'm just usually somewhere between being like shell-shocked and inspired, because the precision with which our birth charts can clarify our life events or predispositions is nothing short of extraordinary. So if we have some of that information already written in the stars for us, why wouldn't we use it? And that's exactly what we'll be doing in today's episode, because we will have the pleasure of chatting with Kat, who is a professional astrologer that I have been collaborating with for some time now. Aside from being just a super awesome and wholesome and cheerful person, Kat has been offering amazing insights, clarity, validation, lots of validation for many of my clients, and they absolutely adore her. And to add to the mix, she's also highly, highly intuitive. That all together, I think, makes her such an amazing resource to tap into. And that's why I'm so excited that she's here today. I'm very grateful that she decided to share her knowledge with you. And I find astrology to be very complementary with coaching and my personal approach. So I simply couldn't keep Kat away from you all. I think it would be a crime. And like I said, I know that many of my listeners are spiritual, so my sincere hope is that this conversation will bring you some much needed clarity on your path as well. Now, before we head into the episode, I really feel like I need to mention it, even though we kind of touched on it in the actual conversation, but I feel like I need to emphasize this. What Kat will be walking us through is a few key aspects, a few placements that may indicate your career direction, your career circumstances. However, a birth chart reading, an individual birth chart reading, would obviously give you much more detail. So this information that Kat shares is not absolute, it's not complete. However, I do believe it's a fantastic start, especially if you have not explored your chart before. What I'd also like to recommend you, like a pro tip, is to have your chart in front of you, like have it open as you're listening to the episode. If you don't have your chart, you've never had anyone read your chart before, you may use the link in the show notes, astro-seek.com. The link is down below, and you can go there and generate your birth chart free of charge. You will obviously need, ideally, your date of birth and time of birth. So in this way, you will have a visual, and it's going to make it easier for you to follow the episode. Now, if you're interested in a personal reading, we've left Kat's details in the show notes. So please feel free to go there, check all the links, and book your reading with her. If you also have some questions, maybe you want to clarify something that Kat mentioned in this episode, maybe you have some additional questions, please feel free also to reach out to me or to Kat. Probably best for me is Instagram. Send those questions, and then we might collect them and record more episodes in the future. You never know. I so enjoyed this conversation, and I really hope that you will too. Hi, Kat. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, glad to be here. Really excited.
Yeah. So the clients who work with me, I think, are very familiar with Kat because she's done quite a few readings to my clients. And every time, I think I told you that every time I would share the reading with them, and then I would get on a call with them, be like, so what are the insights that you took from it? She was like, the first thing that they would say, like, Kat is amazing. I would be like, well, Grat, that's your first takeaway. She is. So your readings have been like so instrumental and validating and insightful. And I know that a few clients even came back to you for additional readings. So I thought it would be a crime not to have you on a podcast and kind of mine your brain and share with people about career astrology and purpose astrology, because that's really what the podcast is about. That's what my work is about. And I know that it's really not that straightforward, right? You and I spoke before recording. Astrology is so complex. I find it complex. Maybe you don't. And there are so many aspects in individual chart that you need to take into account in order to give a more precise and helpful reading. So what we're going to be sharing today, obviously, is probably going to be more high level and should be taken a little bit with a pinch of salt of like, yeah, these are generally the aspects, but please still get probably a more precise reading. What do you think?
Yeah. So as far as career astrology goes, as you know, there are many moving parts. There's lots of different planets that we need to take into account when we're looking at someone's chart to ascertain what career is going to be great for them. Like we're taking into account a person's sun sign, a person's moon sign. But today we're mainly looking at what's known as the Midheaven, which is going to be a pretty general overview of your career experience, the sort of careers that you may be attracted to, as well as your overall reputation. The Midheaven will represent that. But there's definitely a lot more specifics to it. So if you feel like you don't relate to certain aspects of the Midheaven, that's okay too. There's many different things to this.
I love that. Actually, okay, let's start from the beginning. Why don't you introduce yourself first before we get into it?
Absolutely. So I am Catherine, but everyone knows me as Kat. That is my astrology brand name, if you will. And I have been doing astrology professionally on Etsy, and it's been going really well. Really happy with it. Pleasantly surprised, actually. It's been a very shocking year as far as career goes. But I have been obsessed with astrology since I was like 12 because my mum, she gave me my birth chart and I'm like, what the heck is this? What is this all about? And at that time, you know, you don't really relate to a lot of things because you're still 12. But as you grow older, you start to see all these events taking place in your life that really match your birth chart. And then you get to my age, and not that I'm old or anything, but you get to a certain age and you start questioning career. And then you figure out, oh, well, astrology can tell you a lot about your career. And I'm particularly interested in career astrology. I think it's really great to see how your birth chart can actually show what careers are the best for you. And I find also it's very validating for feelings you already have. You know, you might be interested in being like a doctor, for example, and then you check out your birth chart and it also shows that you would be great at that. So it's just really interesting to see the synchronicities.
Love that. And I
Yeah.
think, well, personally, I've always been interested in astrology, not interested enough, or nor do I have the gift to actually do it myself. But I really found it, especially collaborating with you. I always used to see astrology as a great sort of element or like co-creator or a
Mm.
complementary field, if you want, with coaching. Because to your point, a lot of the readings that even you provided for my clients were things that they suspected, wanted, dreamed of, yearned of, but maybe had not admitted that to themselves, or maybe they were in the process of actually uncovering that and being like, oh, could this be a career for me? And,
Mm.
maybe you and I will talk a little bit more about that later, is a lot of my clients do tend to go into healing fields. And that is something that you even said is like, hey, is that like a thing? Because every chart kind of leads to some sort of helping profession. It's a thing. Um, but I love, to your point, is like many of them, and there's a podcast with Nina that you did a reading for, is coming out soon. It hasn't come out as we record, but it will, where she said how like Kat did not know anything about me, and the precise information that she could give me, even to the personal events that happened in my life, that like shocked me. And I assume that is also what you're saying. That is one of the reasons why you fell in love with it.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was just completely shocked. I got to a certain age, and I had actually fallen off the astrology bandwagon for like a couple years there. But I fell back in love with it, and I checked my birth chart. Probably I was maybe 19, and it was just incredible to see that it literally was telling my story, like my life story. It was on point. And I am a bit biased, obviously, but then as I started doing readings for other people, and I was able to pretty quite often pinpoint people's career, and they would message me and say, I don't even know how you did that, but it's pretty incredible. So I have no idea, really, to be honest, why astrology works. It just does. Somehow, the positions of the planets at the time of your birth can tell your story and what you desire in this life.
Mm, right.
Mm.
Do you still get surprised by it? Do you
Yeah,
like you still?
definitely.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I get surprised by it, and I kind of also get mad at it because I've gotten to this point where I can predict events that are not good events for my life, and I can predict them, and I know, oh, something bad is going to happen, and then it does, and I'm just like, why does astrology have to be right? It's not fair, but then it can also predict really great things too.
Right. But isn't it good to know that? I'm like the kind of like, I'm a prepper, and I
Mm.
feel like it's good sometimes to know so you can brace yourself and kind of use like
Yeah.
elemental magic, whatever you're into, like to prepare for these events.
Yeah, no, definitely it's great to be caught up on the events.
100%. Yeah. Okay, so I'm very excited. I think it's going to be such a treat. You can take out your notepads because I think Kat is going to be sharing a lot of interesting details, and she, I think, is going to go into detail into your sign. Where would you advise people to, if they don't know, get their charts from? Because there are like free, like online resources, right, that they can generate the chart.
Yes. Yeah, so there's definitely lots of websites. For my professional practice, I use a free website called astro-seek.com, and it's fantastic. It has so many different calculations you can do. You can look at transits, you can look at secondary progressions, but it's a really great free tool. And all you need to do is know your time of birth. If you don't know your time of birth, I always say, try and get the most close time you can. And then that's going to give you your birth chart.
What do you think? Are you familiar with an app pattern?
No, I've never heard of pattern.
I wonder if that's because you're in Australia. It's very popular, I feel like, in US and Europe. Like everyone is on pattern.
Oh, really? I know that we've got this thing called Co-Star here. I don't know if that's
Oh,
also
I don't know
popular.
if CoStar. No.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it must be
Yeah,
because
maybe
it's
it's like regional. You're too far away.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, anyway, let's get into it. So, okay, so a lot of the listeners of this podcast are people who are in the middle of career transition or people who are considering career transition and feeling really unhappy and misaligned in their current careers. So, where would you start if, say, maybe they can't afford a reading, or maybe they're just in a position where they're not working with an astrologer and they want to get some insights from the chart? Where would you start? Where would you advise them to begin?
Yeah. So first of all, I would just get a general look at, your sun sign and your moon sign to know what you need to be emotionally satisfied. That's going to be the moon sign. And you can get a lot of great free info online for that. But as far as career goes, what we're looking at is something called the Midheaven. Now, that you might be thinking, what the heck is the Midheaven? When you get your chart drawn up, at the very top of the chart, there's going to be this thick, bold line, and it's going to have two letters, especially if you're using astroseek.com, it's going to say MC, and that's going to be your Midheaven point. Now, this is the highest point in the sky at the time of your birth, and what that means is it's the most public position of your chart, and that is why it's often associated by astrologers as being your career, or at least your reputation and your legacy, what you're known for. So depending on what sign it is in is going to be a pretty good overview on what your career can look like, the energy that you bring into career, and possibly also careers that interest you.
Can I ask you before we go into Midhaven? I'm curious now. Um, you said when you look at your moon side, it will tell you what you need to be emotionally satisfied. Can you give some examples of, say,
Mm.
either your moon or just like how do can people understand that in human terms?
Absolutely. So I'll give an example with my moon. I have an Aquarius moon, and Aquarius this very innovative sort of original sign. It's very friendship oriented, but it's not particularly emotionally too much. The Aquariuses don't really get into all the deep emotions. If you're an Aquarius, you might know that. But what they do need to feel emotionally satisfied, for example, would be connection, would be some sort of human connection, whether that be online, like for me, or in a group or an organization, they do thrive off that. So you're looking at where you're going to thrive. I would say, for example, with someone who has a moon in Libra, they may thrive in partnership with someone. So they could be a really great business partner, and that could go really well. Someone who has a moon in Aries, for example, might be the real independent type and doesn't need to work with others to be happy. They just want to do what they want to do.
Mm,
So basically, looking at the qualities of the sign that you have the moon in is just going to show what you need to just be happy, fundamentally speaking.
mm,
Um, yeah, I'd say that.
mhm. What about my moon which is in Gemini? What does that mean?
Well, you need intellectual stimulation, and Gemini moons are pretty restless individuals, very curious, and they get bored easily. So often, as far as career goes, often Gemini moons do need something a little bit challenging, a little bit interesting at least, and something that's quite different every day gives them a new thing. They don't like the mundane things.
Yeah, and I feel like communication is also part of it, no? Because I feel like at work I do communicate a lot, but also I feel like even in my personal life and my emotional life, I feel like I'm like a verbal processor. So in order to understand my emotions, I need to speak them out. So it's like that's why talk therapy could work for someone like me, but it doesn't work for necessarily everyone.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's really interesting. Let's go back to Midhaven. So basically is because you said it's like the most public aspect. So is it how people will see you, or is it like what you need also internally to feel fulfilled?
Depending on what planets you have around there, it could be internal. For example, if you did have a personal planet near your midhaven, it may be very personal to you, like if you had your sun near your midhaven or your moon. But often I do find it's just the way you're going to be viewed. Um, like it's kind of like the marketing point. Like how do you market yourself?
Mm,
How do you best get recognition? that's kind of your midheaven sign. And it's not always going to be internalized, no.
Mm, okay. But is that something that we need to strive for to feel fulfilled?
I don't necessarily think so to feel fulfilled. I think success, yes, I think it is definitely something you can look at to understand how you best achieve success, but
Okay.
emotional fulfillment, not necessarily.
Okay. So we're talking about like career success, right? It's like where would I find success?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, cool. So do you want to like walk us through like different signs and like
Yeah,
what that
definitely.
would mean? Mm-hmm.
So we'll start off with Aries. That's the start of the zodiac. So I would assume that people with a midheaven in Aries like doing their own thing, but at least their reputation is that of being a bit of a leader, a bit of a pioneer. They don't necessarily plan too far ahead as far as their career goes, and they're very just straightforward people. They may be the type to also take risks in their career. And I could even say like certain careers that might go well for an Aries is like owning your own business, for example. Being an athlete, Aries is a very active sign. Um, anything that requires a level of, I would say, initiative is what an Aries midheaven is going to be attracted to.
So
Um,
this is where they would find success, so like not shying away from being a leader or building something of their own, right? This is
exactly.
what success will bring success.
Yes, exactly. And I've seen, for example, a lot of charts where the person may have a lot more private placements, personal placements that are not risk takers, are not bold. Like they might be
Mm.
Libra, for example, Libra sun, but they've got that Aries midheaven, and I always encourage them. You may not like to take risks in other places of your life, but definitely in career, it can prove to be fruitful for you.
How fascinating is it? So that's when you experience that inner conflict, right? Where it's like,
Exactly.
oh, I don't know, sure. Like a lot of my clients who go into like again healing professions and say they need to build a business, they would say, this is not something I would usually do. I'm a very private person, but we would be like, let's separate and put some boundaries between what you would do as a person, as a like individual, and what your career requires you to do.
Exactly. And that's that's a theme in a lot of people's charts I've seen, that they will be in conflict with their career for
Mm.
whatever reason.
Why do you think
And
that is? Sorry,
mm,
go ahead. Why do you think that
sorry,
is?
I was going to say a lot of that is like reflected in social change as well. Like I think we're in this stage of all of us are trying to get out of the 9 to 5, or at least the typical 9 to 5, and we're trying to do things that are more aligned with us. So a lot of people's birth charts reflect that conflict.
Mm. So is that a little bit of like Aquarian era theme, do you think?
I think so, definitely.
Like
Yep.
rethinking, like reimagining, kind of like the Aquarian energy, like embodying that.
Yeah, and going your own way, being unique, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. My goodness. So fascinating. I
I
want to keep you
know.
forever. I want to have you in my pocket, carry around and ask you questions. Okay,
I'm
sorry.
sure it'd be very warm in there.
Okay.
To move on to the next one, we've got Midheaven in Taurus. These people are quite the opposite of Aries, and you'll notice a trend here. The next sign is always going to be very different to the previous sign. That's the way astrology kind of works. These people don't take risks. They're very practical, and they just require stability above all else. So often they're reputation is going to be that of someone who is stable. They may do many things. They may own a business. They may work for someone else, but they're reliable people. So a lot of employers are going to love a midheaven in Taurus because they'll show up to work on time. Now, they also require a level of peace as well. They don't like conflict in their career. Um, but they're very materialistic focused signs. So they may look for careers that are going to bring in more income. And that doesn't mean that it's not aligned with them or anything, but they'll try and get the highest level of income possible. And Taurus, often I've seen Taurus midheavens do well in areas of real estate, because Taurus can rule over that, or sort of creative careers as well. Taurus is ruled by by the planet Venus, And so anything that's sort of creative or about beauty and luxury seems to go very well with Taurus. Anything holistic as well. They're
Mhm.
just the little peacemakers of the zodiac.
I love that. It's just so interesting. So again, just a reminder, we're not talking about your sun sign because a lot of people will hear Taurus and be like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm Taurus. We're talking about
Oh
midheaven, which
yeah,
you can check in your chart, even though
yes.
obviously if you're a Taurus sun, that will also be applicable to you. Um, with the Taurus energy, so do you feel like what I've noticed sometimes, even with Taurus sun, they almost feel like shameful around the fact that they like intrinsically just feel like they want money and like not for like the wrong reasons, but there's a lot of shame around money. Money is so complex and we have so much
Mm,
trauma and lack around it. So basically what I think we need to emphasize here, if you're Taurus midheaven, like it's okay for you to want to have financial stability and maybe even luxury because it is part of your chart. This is where you'll find your success.
yeah, no, exactly. I completely agree. And I think anyone with Taurus energy in their chart, or even second house energy, because that is going to be the house of Taurus, uh, you are looking at a person who would just feel a level of security from having those resources. And it's not that they, want to have Prada or Gucci or whatever, but it's okay to want that too. And they basically, Taurus, they just want to see the tangible efforts of their work. They put in the hard work and they get the rewards. If you
Mm,
are working hard, they expect to see the money coming in. It's a simple exchange of energy.
yeah, like more transactional, right? Where some other
Exactly.
signs may look for other types of rewards, like for them, it's more transactional.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so let's normalize that, Taurus. It's okay for you to want what you
It
want.
is. It is more than okay.
Okay, that's good.
Alrighty, so Midheaven in Gemini. I love Midheaven in Gemini. These people are most likely to be like authors or writers or work in a field that does involve communication. And often I would I would separate the Midheaven from the types of careers. But for some reason, I've just found Midheaven and Gemini are really attracted to careers that do require their voice or their writing in some way. I think
Mhm.
they just need that intellectual stimulation. But I also find that Gemini is this energy of being a jack of all trades. So Gemini midhavens often either juggle two jobs at once, they like doing many different things and they have many different skills. So they kind of dip their toes in a lot of different career paths, or they just change a lot. They're very adaptable and they're very versatile people as well. But it's important to remember with the Gemini Midhaven, sometimes a jack of all trades is a master of none. And not that that's a bad thing, but they may scatter their energy a bit too much where they cannot focus on the one career path. So that's the one thing. But anything that involves writing and speaking usually works very well for a
Mm.
Gemini Midhaven.
Okay, so that's like just your conventional like writing careers, could be maybe like PR, for instance, right?
Mm,
Even like anything that's creativity,
yeah.
expression, all that
Yep.
sort of stuff.
Even like marketing and stuff like that
Marketing.
seems to work well with a Midheaven and Gemini.
Yeah.
Even things like as far as transportation, Gemini rules over transport.
Mm,
It's really interesting. It's ruled by the planet Mercury, and Mercury is a very changeable planet. It's a very fast moving planet. So these people tend to be very quick. They respond to stimulus in the career quickly. They take action quickly, kind of like a Midheaven and Aries.
mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So on this podcast and just in general, we talk a lot about like portfolio careers because I think again that's kind of like it's not really new because it's so straightforward, but for some reason people are rediscovering it's like, oh, I could build two different career paths that have nothing to do with each other. I spoke on this podcast about one of my clients who did part-time business development because she had some aspects that like she loves business, I think Capricorn somewhere, and then she did dog training part-time as well.
Mm,
And for her, because she loves her love for animals, and she couldn't just find one career that would let her do both, right? I think
mhm.
eventually she'll probably open up her own school. I kind of predicted that for her. So she could do some management and business development and still connect with animals. So this is kind of your typical would be like Midheaven and Gemini of like normalizing that it's okay for you to have several efforts with like that asterisk and terms and conditions that like make sure that you do build some sort of foundation from
Yeah.
which you can still explore and have a lot of movement. But without
Yeah,
that foundation, you will feel like your efforts are like lacking, or you may wake up in 5, 10 years and be like, I don't have a lot to show for. Right.
exactly. But you know what? I think in this day and age and sort of like the gig economy, when I feel like a lot of people are requiring or needing to do many different things to bring in some sort of an income. So Gemini midhavens tend to do very well at that. And anyone with like Gemini energy in their chart can do this as well. But particularly if you have the Gemini midhaven, it will probably be related to your career for sure.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah. Alrighty. So Midheaven in Cancer. These are like the nurturers of the zodiac, the mothers of the zodiac. So they like to nurture their career. I find that they can be in very nurturing roles, very emotional roles. So like psychology, for example, even working as a nurse or in midwifery or something along these lines. But they often seem to fall into a career that aligns with their intuition, and they ought to listen to their intuition as far as career goes. The thing is about a midhaven in Cancer is they might sometimes be a little bit nervous to take that step in career. They might be a little bit afraid to put themselves out there, because Cancer is this sort of homebody sign. It likes to feel safe. So if the career feels unsafe, then they may feel unsafe as a person as well.
Mm. Which is, I've seen that. I think one of the readings that you did for one of my clients had a midhaven in Cancer, and she was going to go into that like healing profession, and she does have a lot of conflict around to
Mm,
your point, literally that is her words, like, I may not feel safe, my nervous system does not feel safe to be seen, I really need to. So the way that she's going about, or like the coaching that I offered, was to kind of take baby steps and really like always checking in with how you feel, but still take those baby steps. Just she
absolutely.
may need more care. And I love the way that you expressed it, which is like nurture career, because I feel like it's so common for career. We use like more masculine terms of like building, developing, right? It's just a lot of like sacred masculine. And I love the sacred feminine in this, like nurture the career. Love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so these people really are precious to society as well. This is ruled by the moon, and so the moon is this very private, very personal planet in a space that is very public, which is the career. I'm
Good.
not
Good.
the career is not always public, but it's one of the more public things. So they have a real big heart for anyone that works with them as well. This can sometimes make them susceptible to bullying, but they do also have a big heart for the public's needs, and which is why they often fall into some sort of caregiver role, nurturing. They're also really great in creative careers too. And I find a lot of them end up even in also sort of careers related to the home, so like interior design or architecture or something along these lines.
Interesting. I didn't know that about Cancer Midhaven. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move into Midhaven in Leo. Oh, wow. These people are great. We're going right away from that Cancer energy. These people want to be seen. They love it. Oftentimes, Midhaven in Leo people are actually going to be Scorpio risings. So if you know anything about rising signs, you'll know that that's the first house. And Scorpio has this reputation for being very private people, but Leo, well, they've got the Leo midheaven, and so actually their career is the most public thing. And this is ruled by the sun. So the solar energy fuels the career to be noticed. They want to be admired for whatever they do. Oftentimes, they will be working in a role that is pretty much based around them, like I've seen a lot of actors with a midheaven in Leo, models even. You're just looking at a career where if they're not on display, they are respected, they desire to be respected, and they are usually also known for a level of creativity. Leo is a very creative sign.
Fascinating. I'm thinking again, two things that are coming up. One thing is kind of similar theme this is like kind of, I'm adding in notes from my experience, is similar like shame sometimes around like wanting to be seen. Because again, right, this is not something that is always celebrated, especially in us as kids, where like, oh, you're always want attention. And our parents sometimes unknowingly, unconsciously will kind of create wounding around being seen and feeling safe to be seen. And I've seen that with Leos where they're like, I just feel like I need to be seen. And I think that's wrong, right? And they shame themselves for that. So again, that's a
Exactly.
reminder for Leos. Is like, that's exactly what you're here for, to be seen. It's part of your path.
Exactly. Yeah, and that is the Midheaven, and you know, they they have a strong ego as far as career goes as well. So that's where they want to be the best at. They want to have that great career, and if that's what's going to fuel your identity, then there's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with associating your identity with how your reputation is, as long as you're also not bashing yourself if you're not
Exactly.
going as well as expected. These people can be sensitive to criticism for that reason.
Well, it's Leo. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
that's the queens and kings of the jungle, of course. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they need their compliments. We love Leos. And another piece that was coming through regarding Midheaven and Leo, what was it? Oh, okay. Because I know that one of the girls in the group in the Holistic Career Change group had Midheaven, and this is exactly what she said. We're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just feel like I need to be seen, and a lot of shame around it. And we kind of were working through that. Um, and also, do you feel like that's a teacher? Could that be like a teacher? Like if you
Mm.
have rising in Scorpio, right, which a lot of the times is about the shadow, the darkness, being able to dig deep and support people maybe in that way. I don't know. Do you think that could be like a teacher, a healer as well?
No, definitely, I think so. Leo is a sign that also has to deal with children. So I don't know if this person was looking at being a teacher for children, but in any case, in any role where you're teaching others, you're kind of taking on that solar energy. You are being a guide in some way. You're being an authority. The
Yeah.
sun has to deal with authority, so that makes a lot of sense as well.
Okay. Cool. Let's move on. Let's move on. Was it Virgo next?
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
Virgo.
goodness,
Oh
Virgo.
wow. These people are workaholics. They don't actually, very opposite from Leo, of course. They don't need to be noticed, but they do need a sense of purpose in their career. What I mean by that is they're very dutiful people. So again, employers love a midhaven in Virgo because they're gonna show up to work, they're gonna do the best job they can. And they actually get us a lot of they don't want to admit it, but they get a lot of pride from doing a job well done.
Mhm.
It means a lot to them. They may be attracted to careers that are based in service as well. Virgo is a very service-oriented sign. I find also it's a very introspective sign. It's a feminine sign. So we're putting Mercury, it's ruled by Mercury. We're putting Mercury in a feminine sign where it's more internalized. So these people are excellent in psychology, healing, even things like astrology as well. That is a very mercurial energy. Um, but whatever it is, they're very service oriented. They need to make sure that they're not too hard on themselves as far as career goes, because they can tear themselves down. But if they feel like they're not doing a good job, if they feel criticized, then it can be hard for them.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about that, right? Because I see that in Virgo Suns as well, which is like that strive for unhealthy perfectionism, and I feel like that's the shadow side of like, yeah, I really want to do the job well, but they obsess over it, which again affects their mental health, emotional health. So, kind of reminder for all of the Midhaven Virgo Sun Virgos to really kind of take it easy, or like take it easy.
Definitely, yes. They often do pick the hard road for whatever reason, and it can be the case that actually their parents. I often find this with the Virgo Midhaven. Their parents were very hard on themselves as well, and they may have learned
Mm.
that and internalize that within their career. Um, but they need to realize what a gift they are. I think that they're learning that lesson from Leo. Leo understands the gift they have to the world. So Virgo, as it is the sign after, may not realize their gift. They need to know that they're special, basically.
Oh, how beautiful. Virgos are special. Take it from us. Okay. let's move on.
All right, Midheaven in Libra. These people are the diplomats of the zodiac. So often they will end up working with others. They just may feel a better sense of comfort working with others. They're very harmonious people. But I do find that they may be a little bit passive in the sense that they don't necessarily go after the opportunities. This is the sign that's opposite from Aries. So it's very opposite from that risk-taking energy. They're very fair, very just, and so they're not the type to walk all over others to achieve their goals. It's not that they're not ambitious, but they just see things in a different way. They see that creating peace is the best way to further their reputation. So often they are in careers in law, for example. Politics is really great for Midheaven in Libra. Often I also find they're in creative careers. This is another sign that is ruled by Venus, so beauty can be a theme here. And they're very pleasant people, I find. So people like working with a Midheaven and Libra for that reason. Their reputation is very pleasant. If you see a celebrity with a Midheaven in Libra, they are non-problematic. Like everyone loves them.
Yeah. So for them to find that success, would you suggest them to kind of go towards like maybe partnerships and like some of the areas that you mentioned, like not being afraid?
Yes, definitely. Unless there was something else in the chart to suggest that they need to be very independent, I would say that often they are looking at, you know, getting further by cooperating with others or building something with others.
Okay. So like if the Aries is kind of like encouraged to go on their own way, right? Like the Libra is like, no, it's healthy for you to actually do it with someone. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Beautiful.
Alrighty, so Midheaven and Scorpio. Yeah, surprisingly, this is the hardest one for me to figure out. And I think that's because it's Midheaven and Scorpio, but I'm a Scorpio sun, so I should understand. The best way I can describe a Midheaven in Scorpio is that they're just very intense in their career. So they can do lots of different things. I've seen Midheaven and Scorpios do so many different things from like investigation to law to being an actor to creativity, but they also require a level of privacy from their public life to their personal life. Like they don't like their dirty laundry being out. So they often work behind the scenes. And I think that's why I find this one tough. I don't see a lot of people with it, to be honest. They're very private. They don't like to be seen, basically. The 10th house is your reputation, your career, but it's also where you're seen. So Scorpio midheavens don't like that. They don't like the eyes on them.
So it's
And
like
they often,
very underground.
exactly. They may benefit from actually doing that though. I would say they're more likely to benefit from working behind the scenes, and they do have a lot of ambition. It's not that they're not ambitious. They're ruled by Mars, and the other Mars ruled sign is Aries, but these are the secret side of Mars. They may work in very taboo sort of careers as well, ones that other, more conservative types may shun. But I often find that they could do quite well in areas of psychology or spirituality as well. Scorpios are very spiritual.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so basically anything that probably does not require them to be like full frontal, like Leo, like basically the opposite of Leo energy. And also is you can't seem to find too much like trends or themes when it comes to what sort of professions they often, right?
So bizarre. Like I barely see trends with this one. It can be so different. I don't know why that is. I think because Scorpio goes through these deep transformations in life, often their career, if you have the midhaven there, their career tends to go through upheaval and change. And I think this is why I don't see a theme. They just, because often these people will have a big career change in their life for that reason.
Interesting. So basically, if you are Scorpio Midheaven and you're confused, get a reading with Kat because you probably need to look at other aspects in your chart because
Pretty much.
yeah, right, like other aspects probably would be informative in terms of like what the career direction would be good for them.
Yes. definitely.
That's so interesting. Something about the Scorpio energy that I find in my practice, and also personally, probably because, again, being an Aries sun, which I do have Pisces rising, but with the Aries sun, I find it really hard to figure out Scorpio energy.
To be honest, me too. I'm literally a Scorpio sun and I still can't figure it out.
What? Like, right? Because you're like, you never know. You know, with other signs, you kind of can expect or see the patterns in their behavior, but I feel like they're very changeable and can be fickle as well, Scorpio, where you're like, one day they're like open and friendly, and the next day it's like they don't know you, and then you're really confused. At least that's what I find.
Yes, and honestly, I can attest to that as a Scorpio sun.
So what is it? Is it just something you don't even realize that is happening? Is like just what is it
I think
about?
so. Honestly, I think, to be honest, we're very moody. I'm not
Yeah,
even going to hide it. We're just moody people.
right. Thank you for explaining. That is totally my personal question because I feel like that's the one energy of all of the chart where I'm the most mysticized about. Okay,
All right.
let's move on.
So, Midheaven in Sagittarius, I feel like this is the one that I am really cultured on. Not culture's not the right word. I get this one. I've seen this so often, and I say this to absolutely everyone with a Midheaven in Sagittarius during my readings. I say, you want your career to mean something. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is Sagittarius is a very ethical sign. It's a sign that would like traditionally represent something like religion. I say now like spirituality and philosophy and these higher level themes. But whatever it is, they have this moral compass that they're very attached to. And that means that within their career, within their reputation, they don't want to have a bad look. They want to basically have this appearance of a saint. And they, like I said, they want to feel like they're making some sort of an impact. They're very good with wisdom and knowledge. So often, very often, I see them being a spiritual teacher or just a regular teacher. But they also really love traveling. So I often also say these people benefit the most from traveling for work. They may find a lot of understanding about the career, a lot of alignment when they're on a trip, for example. It may just happen unexpectedly. And they're also extremely optimistic. They're ruled by the planet Jupiter. So they've always got this grass is always greener on the other side attitude, which, can be a problem as well. It may be this sort of like bird in the hand is worth two in the bush situation where they've got something great, but they're like, well, I know that something better is over there. So they quit their job and they go off and they explore something else. But that's the thing, they're explorers, so they're always going to be exploring how can I make some impact with my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like we make it a lot about ourselves and especially me about me. But I'm Sag Midhaven. So I feel like I resonate with everything that you said, which is a moral compass and wanting to right all the wrongs in the world. And I feel a lot of fire around the injustice, especially around career and misconceptions around career. And also, most of my clients are foreigners. I literally don't have people who are Lithuanian. Well, one client who's Lithuanian who lives abroad for many years. So I feel like that's also my Sag influence.
Yes.
And wanting to be independent, to travel a lot. It's the thing that is, and to your point, I do get a lot of insights around career and just life when I travel, which is common
Exactly.
for a lot of people because you access different energy and you can do that. But I feel like probably for Sag, anything that will be true as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, they're definitely like you mentioned freedom. Freedom above all else. That's what they love. They want their career to have some level of freedom. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Approve that. Okay. Let's move on.
Alrighty. So Midheaven in Capricorn. This is the natural place for Midheaven to be. And what I mean by that is the way astrology is set up is Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and therefore you go around, you get to Capricorn, and that's the 10th. So this is a pretty good place for the Midheaven to be for that reason. They're very diligent workers. It's a little bit similar to Virgo, but they are a little bit more based about their reputation. They're very ambitious people. Again, quite moral, so they're not being dodgy or anything, but they don't like to ask for help. They just want to feel like their own efforts are doing everything. And it's also similar, I find, to Taurus in a way that they like to see the tangible results of their efforts, but it's less materialistic, in my opinion. I think they like to see, right, I've put in so much years of work and I have, this reputation to show for it. They want their reputation to be the most important thing. So if their reputation suffers, they suffer.
Mm. You know what they
Mm.
sound like Capricorn, and obviously a lot of business owners, right, as well, right? Kind of
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Business owners, managers, bosses. I see these people do very, very well in financial fields as well.
Is there any other industries that you would recommend for
I would
Capricorn?
recommend I would recommend politics for Capricorn Midheaven. I would also recommend law as well, and anything that basically helps them manage a lot of things. So I can't really think of like one industry, but where they are able to manage, that seems
Mhm.
like a good place for them.
So like they're just like the managers of the zodiac, like
Yeah,
just hardworking managers. These sound like what do they sound like when you just describe them? They sound like a combination of like Virgo, Taurus, and Aries, where they're
yeah,
like the good qualities of all of them.
yes, definitely. And they're ruled by Saturn here. So your career ruler is going to be Saturn, showing that you are basically going to be the authority of your field. Saturn can
Mm.
be a very serious planet, though. So you may be attracted to serious careers, or you may have a very serious reputation.
So like not shying away from that, because sometimes you'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, right, like no, that
Yes,
this is
absolutely.
where your home is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Midhaven and Aquarius. I'm excited to talk about this one because this is my one. So
Okay.
I know it's energy. Now I've said this before, but Aquarius is a very innovative sign. So they usually, in their career, they usually like to do things a bit differently. And they're not necessarily drawn to traditional jobs. It's funny because Aquarius is another sign that is ruled by Saturn, but it's very different to
Very
Capricorn. It's
different
not,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not traditional at all. I think Saturn in this case has to do with personally structure. These people do need some level of structure in their career, but they also have a little bit of an authority attitude. They just hide it and they deny it, and I'm guilty of this. But Aquariuses are just as arrogant as Capricorn could be, to be honest. But the difference is that they're very original, so they do things very differently. And I also find that they tend to have a little bit of unexpected energy in their career. What I mean by that is that their career seems to go through a lot of changes. The modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, which is a very shocking sort of planet. So career tends to be quite shocking for them in some way.
I have a bird that is knocking at the birdhouse. So if you hear it, that's what it is. She is, I know it's a she because of the way she's very adamant. So let's take it as a good sign. Did you mention, sorry, did you mention some of the fields or like some of you mentioned this, it was basically everything not traditional.
No, definitely. I forgot to mention something about Aquarius is that it's a very humanitarian sign. So they are not necessarily humanitarian in the way Pisces is. Pisces is very emotional, but Aquarius cares about the group. So they like to see a lot of group change, which means that they could be good in um, sort of social work. They could be good in politics again for that reason. They want to make their mark on the world in some way. But they're also very scientific as well. So a lot of Aquarius Midhavens end up in like technology or science for some reason. I am in a spiritual field. I don't necessarily think Aquarius to me screams spiritual, but it screams knowledge. They love knowledge as well, kind of like Gemini. It's an air sign, so they do love to gather knowledge and share it in some way.
What do you think is the purpose of Aquarius in this world?
It's funny because we're in the age of Aquarius, so I think a lot of Aquarius midhavens tend to be particularly upset by the current career climate. I know I am. I am always upset hearing about the cost of living, and I just get so mad about it. So I think a lot of the purpose of Aquarius energy is to raise that vibration personally and to encourage others to be their own unique individual selves. And I know that that is kind of my reputation as an Aquarius midheaven. When in my readings, I'm always encouraging people's uniqueness.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's why I think we worked, because I kind of have the same message for the people.
Yes,
So that's really interesting. I find
exactly.
them also, I keep on wanting to talk about Aquarius. I need to move on because I don't want to, I don't want other signs to feel neglected. Let's maybe move on.
All right. Alrighty, Midheaven in Pisces. We've left the best till last. Um, Pisces is at the end of the zodiac, meaning that they have learnt all the other lessons of all the other zodiac signs. So I think we need to give them more credit. They have a lot on their plate. They're the dreamers of the zodiac as well. And so they're very intuitive once again, but they're particularly spiritual, meaning that they can basically close the bridge between this world and the other world. So Midheaven in Pisces is often going to be in some sort of a spiritual field or a healing field. They're working with outcasts of society as well, a lot of the times. They're very creative as well. So I this more than all of the other creative signs of the zodiac is the most likely to end up in a creative career, in my opinion. Whatever that looks like for you, whether that be like singing or acting or painting, they love that. And I often find that a midheaven in Pisces, they have a little bit of a savior attitude as well. So they may look at their career from the perspective of wanting to save others. And it's important to just remember that, you know, you're not meant to do that. Don't be a martyr for the sake of your career. But at the same time, I really think that they're spiritual people. I do think that they can help a great deal in that area. They may just feel like completely different to the rest of the zodiac. They may just feel like, what on earth am I meant to do in this life? They can be quite confused by their purpose because they've got a lot of intuitive information coming at them all the time.
I find that to be so true with a
Mm.
Pisces in general, not just Midheaven, just in general with a Piscean energy. So basically, what I'm hearing is career that ideally could, because I love merging careers and merging
Mm.
paths, where like something that reimagining to the point of like new careers. So like if they could merge spirituality and creativity, that probably would be the highlight of their like success,
Mm.
right? If
Yes,
they
I
could
think so.
see,
They love that. And
yeah.
you know, these people don't have to be in some creative career either, but they do want to feel they're probably the most likely to suffer if their career is not really aligned with them. So if they're doing like a job that feels very dead end to them, that can be very like bad for their mental health. They're quite sensitive people. And also uh, Pisces is a sign that's dealing with boundaries as well. So I think a lot of them do need to take on a bit more of a boundary between them and their career, like just knowing that you are not your career. Almost like its opposite sign, Virgo. Virgo can be very critical on its career. Pisces can tend towards the same sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's also because Piscean energy is also like so mutable and they kind of like adjust or like become one probably, right? With so a lot of like I feel like that's the energy of like an empath, an intuitive who are like just merge with the object subject area and then they lose themselves as well.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So they can lose themselves in career, but they truly have such vivid dreams for their career and they need to know the gift they have in that regards. Like they have that for a reason. Sometimes they can put off all that dreaming to be more quote unquote practical.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard for them to, because I find that in my practice and personal life, my partner's Piscean sun, why do you feel like it's so hard for them to like even understand themselves? Is it for all of the above reasons that we just
All of the
listed?
above. Yeah, all of the above, but I think mainly the merging, the boundaries. They feel everyone else's feelings as if it was their own. So it's really important for them to make that distinction between themselves and others. Like the sign that comes right after Pisces is Aries, and that's what Aries does. Aries is self-focused, I'm not saying that Aries are selfish people.
We
You're not
are.
selfish.
No, that's the shadow side of Aries. You don't need to be
Well,
polite. It is. It's a very selfish
yeah,
sign. Yeah.
yeah, but the Aries like primary motive is to just be able to express itself in any given moment. Whereas Pisces' primary motive is how do I feel your feelings? How do I help you? So I
Yeah.
think that can definitely cause them to kind of take on other people's problems a little bit. But we're kind of getting into like personal Pisces. I'm not
Yeah.
saying if you have a Pisces midheaven, you're going to take on everyone's problems, but they do
Yeah.
end up oftentimes in healing fields for that reason.
Right. Fair
Mm.
enough. Okay. So we
Mm.
closed the circle, right? With
Yeah. Yeah.
Midhaven. It's amazing. I feel like we need a drink now. Okay, that was that was a lot. Hopefully you find it useful. And again, this is kind of high level, right? Direction. Um, how would you advise people to interpret like astrological information? Because I know that at the beginning of the readings that you've given to my clients, you said spiritual reading, take whatever you want, leave whatever does not resonate. Is that kind of how you would advise to work with it?
Yeah, definitely. I often when in my readings I will say something along those lines, or I'll say this placement can mean this, or it can mean this, or it can mean this, because placements can mean many different things. So if you're looking at it yourself and you're thinking, or you're hearing me and you're thinking, nah, that's not me, I would leave it, and I would also, look at other placements in your chart. You can even do things like ask ChatGPT, like, what does this mean? ChatGPT
Oh,
gives a
that's
great.
great advice. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely works. I found it to be quite good, actually. It's a little bit scary because I'm like, don't take my job, ChatGPT, but
I did
it's
the
pretty.
same. I did the same with holistic career change. And I think I was writing something in email or whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna play with it. And the words that he used is the exact words I would use. And I was like, don't, no, like not happening.
Scary.
Oh my goodness. I actually have a funny story. One of my friends who's a comedian, he said he's going to use it in his stand-up comedy skit because basically what I do every time I use ChatGPT, I always say, hi, hello, how are you? And I always thank and I say please because when the machines take over, I want them to remember that I was nice to them.
I do that too. I
Do
do that
you?
too. I feel like that's like the female experience being
Maybe.
ChatGPT.
It's like, let's just be polite just in case in general, right? Like, you never know. Okay.
Oh,
Cool. So are there any other aspects that you want to maybe we won't go into that much detail, but kind of like broad strokes to share what they can look at when they want to analyze purpose, career.
right. So broad strokes. I am also really obsessed with something called North Node. And as much as I'd love to go through all the North Node signs, I won't. Basically, the North Node is a placement, it's a position actually in astrology. It's the North Node of the moon. And wherever it falls in your chart shows a level of purpose. Now, I always make this distinction. I always say your North Node does not always have to be about career, but for those people that it does, um, North Node can bring a level of purpose into your career, meaning you are seeking purpose through your career, through your reputation, through what you are delivering. And this might be people with North Node in the 10th house, people with North Node in Capricorn, North Node in the second house, that's about income. North Node in the 11th house as well. People with North Node in the 11th are really in this life learning about how to fulfill their hopes and dreams. So that's another really great placement to look at. It's a very slow moving position. So a lot of you and your peers will have the same sign North Node, but it may fall in a
Mm.
different house for you. And again, I would search up your exact North Node placement. I would say, let's say you had North Node in Libra second house. Search up what does North Node in Libra second house mean? And it can give you some pretty great information.
Right. So like
Mm.
if it's Midheaven, you're checking for the sign. And so with the North Node, you want to probably focus on the sign and the house.
Absolutely, yes, because the house is like very personal to you. Midhaven moves really quickly. It's very specific to your birth time, whereas North Node moves, it goes through each sign about every 18 months. So it's not going to be as specific as if it was, all right, I have North Node in Aries. All right, but what about North Node in Aries 10th house? Then I would say to that person, your career is, or your purpose is literally to make your mark in career and do what you want to do and not what other people want you to do.
Yeah. Right. Okay, cool. So like my age group, so I have North Node in Aries, so I guess around that. So then you check the sign.
Yes, yeah, I would, and specifically in your chart, Vilma, it's in Aries first house, which is double Aries, double your purpose is to pretty much, I would say, put yourself first and do things for yourself.
Right. Which again, a lot of shaming in our society for that. So all of my Aries out there, good. This is
Rejoice.
part of our path, right? But it's also always working and making sure that the subconscious part of it, which is like the dark side of every sign, right? That doesn't take over, which is the ego and being not empathic and not taking other people's feelings into consideration, which I
Absolutely.
think is right, like something that we all need to cultivate to be able to
Absolutely. Mm.
operate in both worlds. Is there, okay, I'm going to challenge you a little bit, but if you can't, that's fine. Is there a way for you to like give like a sentence or two, like just because I'm mindful of the time of like North Node in different signs, or is it too hard to like summarize it like that?
I can do that. I've done that as a TikTok before, so I think I could do it again here.
Okay.
All right, so let's go.
Let's go.
North Node in Aries. Um, you don't need to be codependent. You can do things on your own. You don't need to be with other people. Calm down. North Node in Taurus. Focus on your value. What is your worth about? Focus on your income as well. And these people just need to learn how to chill out and take a break. North Node in Gemini. You don't know everything. Learn some new things. Learn from the people around you. Stop being a know-it-all. I feel like I'm roasting people with this now. I shouldn't do this.
No, it's good. It's good. I love it.
North Node in Cancer, your career is not the most important thing. It's still important, don't worry. But start to look inwardly. Nurture yourself a little bit.
Mhm.
North Node in Leo, you just need to express yourself. You don't need to do everything else for other people. You don't need to be a friend to everyone. Just be who you are. North Node in Virgo, stop being delusional and make your dreams a reality.
Um,
Get back down to earth, please. We
yes.
love you.
Yes.
North Node in Libra, very opposite to North Node in Aries. You can't do everything by yourself, and that is okay. You are not less than. You can cooperate with others, and you'll be fine. North Node in Scorpio. What do other people value? Get interested in psychology. Get interested in other people's money. You are not going to lose your value by caring about others. North Node in Sagittarius, expand your vision, expand your mind, go exploring, go travel the world, learn about higher level themes, learn about spirituality, and find a spiritual path that aligns with you. North Node in Capricorn, your family isn't everything. They are important, but sometimes they drag you down, sometimes they hold you back. You're encouraged to really get serious about career and take a risk and be bold. And then North Node in Aquarius, opposite to North Node in Leo. This is going to be about being more humanitarian, looking at the group needs and what do you need to make your impact on society? How can you help society? And then finally, North Node in Pisces is all about uh, exploring deeply the metaphysical reality, also the way that this world can merge with the other, being kind to yourself, being kind to others, and being an empath, basically.
Love it. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. This is so good.
that's okay.
I know that we're like massively generalizing, and like again,
Mhm.
another reminder, please also be mindful that while these are general themes, you still want to look at your like birth chart to understand it better
Yes.
and how it all connects. And I guess we can't really talk about North Node without South Node. Can you share a few sentences what that means? Like North Node is also an extension of the South Node.
So North Node is opposite the South Node, and South Node is basically what holds us back. So it's the sign that is opposite the North Node sign. So it really often these polarity signs are going to have a lot of differences. But I find that South Node is a little bit more of a karmic position often. Often we do represent our South Node sign in the shadow area of that sign, for example.
Mm,
So if you had South Node in Aries, you might be a little bit more of a selfish person
yeah.
because
And
it's
also
the shadow. Mhm.
the shadow side, and I feel like also what I hear, I don't know if you probably you talk about that too, which is that is also kind of like past lives lessons, right? So like you kind of
Yeah.
integrate it and you're here to leave them behind, but they will still come up to test you.
Yes, and I should like also say that it's not all bad. Like South Node in a certain sign doesn't mean, oh, you're representing every bad quality about that sign. You also have a real gift from that sign, and you are naturally talented in that sign. You're learning about how to show the positives of that sign in this life as well.
Mm, okay, that's really interesting. Cool. Um, are there any other aspects? Maybe we can't go through like every sign, but like, do you would like them to pay attention to, or are these the main ones?
Mm, I would just pay attention to any planets that are in the 10th house, search up what that planet is all about, and that often can influence your career in some way. And it can change the effect that the sign you have your midhaven in.
Okay, so 10th house, what does it represent?
So it's your reputation, it's your career. It's basically the same as the midhaven. The midhaven point is just the most public area. So not to get complicated, but the degree that the midhaven is at is an important degree. The 10th house is just an extension of your career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In terms of the degrees, like again, is this just something that needs to be read specifically, or are there any like, oh, up to this degree? I was seeing a reading like the other day, an email where it was like, well, if you're from this degree to this degree, this is what it means. Is that how you read that with the degrees?
Yes, so there are different ways of reading degrees. There are decans, which is like the first 10 degrees, then there's the next 10 degrees of a sign, and then there's the next 10. So each sign has 30 degrees. Um, but I often look at the degree as representing another sign in the zodiac. So I'll give an example. If you have your midhaven at 7 degrees, the seventh degree is the degree of Libra because Libra is the seventh sign of the zodiac. So you can also put a Libra spin on your midhaven. It's not going to influence the whole thing, but it adds a little bit of spice.
Oh my goodness. It's like I feel like it's like Inception, the dream within a dream, because you're
I
starting to add
know.
all of these layers and
Yeah,
then
that's a lot. So just don't get confused, guys. You could just stick with the midhaven for now.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, cool. This is really fascinating and helpful. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
sure that the
you.
listeners will enjoy that. We also talked a little bit about, or like touched upon in your readings, you also tend to add like a little tarot reading in
Mm.
addition to your astrology reading. Can you talk to me about that? Why you decided to do that? What does it give you? How you use that? How would you advise others to use that? Because a lot of people are curious spiritually in this community as well.
Yeah, so I my first love is astrology. My second love is tarot. I think that they can go very much hand in hand. And the reason I use it at the end is to just add a little bit of extra context. They can get very specific, the cards. So what I find is that each midhaven sign may have a different expression for different people. And
Mm,
then also all their other planets that are affecting them, their moon, everything. The tarot can more specifically tell me, all right, so they have a Sagittarius midhaven, but the card that came out for me is, for example, Ace of Pentacles. So they are looking at a career that is going to be financially prosperous from a Sagittarius point of view. So,
mm,
for example, teaching. But then I also got a card maybe that said the Hermit. So they're also very introspective people. So tarot, there's a lot of cards. There's 78 cards. Each card has a vivid meaning, complex meaning, and I find that it's just an extra intuitive tool to help me understand their career and what their career path looks like. And also, it's really great for advice. Oftentimes, I look at transits in astrology for advice, but then the tarot gets a little bit more specific for me.
So it's kind of like expands it, like adds more flavor and colors and explanation and layers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Is there like a spread or anything you want to recommend to the listeners to use? Or maybe again, it's very general and I'm asking super general question.
It's funny. I don't often use spreads. I find them more difficult. I don't know what it is about me. I just need a card to like pop out and then it just gets my intuitive thinking going. But I would recommend the three card spread, as in the challenges, the opportunities, and the outcome. That seems to be a pretty good spread for like, all right, what are the challenges of this certain career path? What are the opportunities of that certain career path? And what is the outcome of that career path?
Yeah. And then I guess you
Yeah.
can add more cards if you need more explanation on each
Yeah.
of those.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Cool. Well, this is fantastic. Is there anything else you want to share, add, wish for for
Hmm.
people how to work with, I guess, astrology and career?
At the end of the day, I think, free will is still ours,
Hmm.
and you don't need to do a career that is word for word what your chart says, but it can definitely help you feel more aligned. And I think for many people, it's simply a validation for what they already know deep down, where they need to be.
Yeah. And you know
Yeah.
what? Another thing that I heard you say a lot in the readings, which I feel like I tend to like share a similar message and remind people, which is like just follow your intuition. Because like
Mhm.
exactly essentially what you just said, like follow your intuition because no teacher, no reader, no astrologer can really tell you exactly what that should look and feel like to you because you're the one who's feeling what's right.
Yes, yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. So this is our guest wish to listeners, like take it all on board, but then filter it out. And again, make sure that you follow the intuition, you feel out like somatically, viscerally, what does it feel like when you think of that career? What, does it feel expansive? Does it feel exciting? Do you want to learn? This is not to say that there won't be challenges. And I think that's a big misconception. I talked about it in my previous episode, which is people think like if it's an aligned career, that means everything should be flowy. I should not be doing any things that I don't want to do. It should all be like perfect magical flow, which yes, you will have much more flow than in a misaligned career. But that doesn't mean that we still won't have to integrate all of these different signs in the work, right? That means we may have to be grounded and work hard like a Virgo. And there will be times where we need to show ourselves and be a Leo energy because we need to, show up and show out and kind of share about our work, right? So making sure that we don't like misconstrued what it actually means to be on purpose and work in an aligned field.
Yeah, exactly. And I can attest to that and say my career as an astrologer feels very aligned to me. I wake up every day loving it.
Yeah.
I never feel stressed. I know in my other previous 9 to 5, I dreaded waking up because I didn't want to go to work. But there are some bumps in the road, there are some challenges. And but at the end of the day, it feels most like me.
Yeah, it will feel most like you. And then again, like I said, I guess not fearing the challenges because they're there for us to make us better, to grow, to expand us, to people who are in serving capacity, like maybe you and I, like make us better service people for the others, right? So these challenges, if I have like a more, I don't know, like a client situation that I didn't have before, I could like curl up and cry and think I'm a horrible coach, or I could be like, okay, this is really unpleasant, but also is teaching me something, is here for me, and what is the lesson here for me? So like being open and embracing, I think that allows us to go on that like soul's evolution path with a little less turbulence, because when we resist it, when we resist it, it's just harder. And of course, we're human beings, right? And of course, there will be resistance. Or to your point, like when we'll be moody and tired or we are on our period, right? Of course, that will happen. But generally speaking, I think like working with that energy is going to make it so much more fun, I think, in life.
Yeah, yeah. That is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And I think we should all have fun as well. Let's not forget to have fun. This all sounds really serious, but I'm a big proponent of like having fun as well.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kat, for sharing your wisdom. I feel like maybe we'll have to make more episodes.
I think so too. I'd
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And be more regular guests. I have so much respect for the craft because I feel like that's astrology. What I've heard from astrologers is that's something that you learn for the rest of your life. You never
Oh
stop
yeah.
learning in
Oh
astrology.
yeah. It's endless. Sometimes I'm like, oh, and there's more. There's more layers. Great.
Do you find that enticing, or does it sometimes
Oh,
feel like,
absolutely. Absolutely. I have my career ruler in Gemini, so I need more and more and more and more
oh, so
information.
that's good for
I need
you?
all of the information. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas for someone else, like Virgo would be like, oh my God, there's more. I can't work. I can't do this. It has to be met.
Exactly.
Love this. Thank you so much, Kat. This was fantastic. We're laughing that we need to release the episode before Mercury goes retrograde. So probably, probably gonna get the episodes very soon from the recording, and I can't wait to share it. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you, Vilma. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for spending time with me today. If you resonate with this content, please subscribe and leave a little review to put a smile on my face. And if you'd like to take this work further and have my one-on-one support in switching to an aligned career path using my holistic career change method, make sure you head over to the show notes and book your free consultation call. I can't wait to meet you. Have a nice day.